Hi everyone, my name is Kartik and my channel is about mental models. Welcome to the 9th and last video in this systems thinking mini-series. I hope that these videos have helped you to understand what systems thinking is all about. I'm conscious that the last 8 videos in this mini-series have been very full on and there was a lot to get your head around, and keeping that in mind, I'm going to keep this video much lighter than the others. This video is about bringing everything together from the previous 8 videos. So I've called this video Managing Systems. The key takeaways from the mini-series videos, the systems thinking mini-series videos, is that feedback loops help in influencing future outcomes. Solutions or second-order thinking helps us consider intended and unintended consequences at the action stage. Pinch points help us to better optimize systems. The iceberg model helps us to uncover underlying causes to visible events. Stock and flow helps us to visualize dynamic changes, and pathways helps us map systems and understand the how and why of situations. It also helps us to see the relationships between all of the elements of that system. So that was a really quick recap. Now let's work through an example. A manufacturing company my manufacturing company is making parts which are assembled together to launch a product. A number of parts are behind schedule. So that's parts. A number of parts are behind schedule, and management believe that if this continues, then the product launch will be missed. In order to send a message to the engineers that this number needs to come down, these are the engineers. In order to send a message to them that this number needs to come down, the number of parts behind schedule needs to come down, management decides that tighter supervision and a review of parts is required to help. Initially, this focus on late parts does help, and so we have this feedback loop. So you've got parts behind schedule, and then you've got sort of the management attention, and then that goes back to the parts behind schedule. So with the number of parts behind schedule, you have more management attention. The more parts behind schedule, the more management attention. So that's a positive correlation. And with more management attention, what's happening is that the number of parts behind schedule is reducing. So with more management attention, the parts behind schedule is reducing. So that is a negative correlation. So what we've got here is a balancing loop. So initially, this does help. Soon, however, the problem returns and management again use the same strategy, but this time it is taking longer to remedy, and the problem keeps on coming back. This sort of parts behind schedule problem keeps on coming back, and each time it does come back, it is getting more difficult and longer to fix. So why could this be? The reason is that this added management attention, so these two things here, is taking engineers away from making the parts. As a result of this, they would tend to hold back on reporting problems, because then they would have to go and do this review. And they would do this until they had solutions to fix them. So when you get to the review is very quick, they've got the solution, and then they can carry on manufacturing the parts. They want to be involved in making the parts, not be involved in this review. So this sort of withholding of information, this in turn would have knock-on effects on other parts being manufactured, because all of the parts are being put together to launch this product. And that is because information is not being shared between the engineers. As I said, they are withholding their problems until they have a solution. And so this was the initial loop, but when the problem comes back, this is what happens. So with more management attention, you have these review meetings, and then you have the sort of, as I've said, the other important element is the timely reporting of problems, and then this sort of goes back in here. So with more management attention, we would have more meetings, so there is a positive correlation there. And then with more review meetings, the engineers are withholding information, so the timely reporting of problems is actually reducing. They're doing less timely reporting, so that this is negative. It's an inverse correlation, and therefore with the lack of timely reporting, the number of parts behind schedule, remember this is less, the number of parts behind schedule is more. So actually this is inversely correlated as well. So here we've got a negative as well, because it's an inverse correlation. And so there is, in this sort of arrow here, there is a little bit of a delay between the sort of the lack of timely reporting and the parts falling further behind schedule, or more parts falling behind schedule. There is a little bit of a delay, but because this timely reporting is happening less and less, the number of parts behind schedule is getting more and more, and that's why there's an inverse correlation. And so this second loop here, this is a reinforcing loop, and that is creating a bigger problem, which is more difficult to fix. So even though management wanted to help, there is an unintended consequence of more parts falling behind schedule. A better approach would have been to prioritize the timely reporting of problems. It's this thing here. And this would have meant that problems would not have been hidden by engineers. And rather than what feels like punishing engineers with this sort of review of parts, this sort of thing here, by not doing this and keeping engineers manufacturing parts, initially the problem would have got worse, but eventually the number of parts that are behind schedule would have fallen. So the number of parts that are late, that number would have come down, which is what management would have wanted. So that's what should have been done. complex systems have a tendency for issues to get worse before they get better. And that's how these things work when a good strategy is implemented. Ultimately, systems are interconnected, as I've said in one of my previous videos. Ultimately, systems are interconnected and respond to all relevant interconnections. And there's also the notion of unintended consequences. These will always occur. There will always be unintended consequences. You can't sort of have a system where, or a scenario where there won't be any unintended consequences. There will always be unintended consequences. And so by mapping both intended and unintended consequences in a diagram, it can help us anticipate and address problems before they arise. The key is to understand the degree and the kind of consequences, both intended and more importantly, unintended consequences. And so by doing that, we can understand the degree and what kind of consequences they could be. We need to know that at the action stage, so then we can take measures to lessen the degree or lessen the kind of consequences that are coming out, the unintended ones, that is. And so that is how systems thinking fits together. And that's all for this video, and that's all for the Systems Thinking mini-series. I hope that you liked this video and the mini-series. If you did, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And please go back and revisit my previous videos on this mini-series to cement your understanding of the concepts further. Some of these videos are floating on screen now as I speak, so floating here. So have a watch of all of them if you can. And I will see you again in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.